Welcome back to the Weaving Magic podcast. I am your host, Tara Webb.
And I'm your host, Alyssa Lilly.
And this is a fun topic today. Names. What do they mean? Where do they come from? And this is something that I've really started diving into, obviously, since I published my book, Tara Webb. That's my pen name, and, why I chose that and kind of stuff. But I feel like it's coming up even more so recently as I talk with other people about it. And I think changing your name, well, typically changing your name is because you're getting married, right? And you're typically taking on your spouse's, usually husband, but spouse's last name. And I would like to think, I know at least for me, it's, when I was considering doing it, it was more out of like, I don't want to say obligation. That sounds really bad, but we're just expected to, right? Like there's not any thought towards it. It's like, okay, I'm just going to take his name. And
it's almost like it's a standard. This is just what we do.
And you're right. It's a standard. It is. We're excited to change that because it means we're somebody different and we have finally attached ourselves to this person. Very much so. And I remember whenever I was going to change my name, it was a long process and I just never did it. I told people my last name as it was changed, but I never officially changed it ever. And my husband would joke about it. And now we're almost, this year will be 9 years that we've been married. And I've actually considered, because all of our boys have his last name. And it's hilarious because whenever we go to give birth and they always, take the mom's last name per se, which is typically the husband's. And so it's like my last name, the baby, is like Spear Baby. And they always call him Mr. Spear. And that's not his name at all. It's just hilarious because he's like, I'm definitely not Mr. Spear. And so I've joked with him about, if I ever have a girl, I'm going to name her last name Webb. Because it just means so much to me. So obviously I didn't change my last name to his. And I specifically chose Webb for a reason. And we'll go into that. But Alyssa did choose to take her husband's last name. And I think that is beautiful and very intentional.
Yeah. So I have a lot of past trauma with my family and a lot of family trauma cycles that have repeated after generation to generation to generation. And for me, my prior last name, Williams, I hate saying it out loud. It just sounds weird coming out of my mouth. Because I haven't gone by that name in many years, but it carries so much baggage for me and what I've been through. My middle name too, and I refuse to say that one out loud, but Lily is not my actual middle name. It's what I wanted to change it to. So that's my chosen name, and I will eventually change it. It's just a lot of a process that I didn't realize.
I did so much paperwork.
It's so much paperwork. And if you change your name and it's not because you're getting married, you have to put it in the newspaper and stuff. So it's a whole process. But I did go ahead and change my last name, and I felt so much relief that I was cutting off my ties to my past while I'm also healing and cutting off those generational cycles. They're not going to happen anymore, and my kids will not experience that. I am going to be the end of that trauma cycle. And there's just something really beautiful in that.
And that is because you're able to kind of walk away from it.
Well, and the family's name who I've taken has treated me since day one as if I was one of them. I had grown up with them my entire life and have showed me what it's like to have a healthy mother relationship or healthy sister relationship and what that bond can truly look like. And it's beautiful.
That's very healing. Hearing that. When I chose my last name, Webb, I actually just kind of was trying to figure out a fun pen name. And I don't even think I, at the moment, knew why I wanted a pen name. I just did. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And I kept, going through multiple ideas, but Webb just kind of kept coming back to me as, weaving your own destiny, weaving
magic.
I had a little epiphany as we're sitting here talking about satyrs and how they weave and stuff like that. And
weaving, the word weaving has been coming up a lot recently.
We've been talking about just satyr magic and like looking into it and what it actually is, just to learn and to dive into it. And so it's just funny that I'm realizing like a lot of the different weaving ways that it's come in. And so Webb is definitely, weaving my own story, weaving my own life. And whenever we did with Rose Gold Goddesses, there was a Samhain circle, and it was talking about your family lineage. And I talked in that circle about, my father having my ancestors' names on his side all the way back to arriving on Plymouth, and probably even, further back than that. And we have pretty far on my mom's side as well. I just noticed as we were looking that a lot of the names and documents too, searching for it, don't have my female ancestors' last names, one of like, where they came from, what father they hailed from, or even their first names sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just,
it's so hard to trace your lineage back through women. It's almost impossible.
Which is crazy because that's originally where the lineage would start.
Yeah, babies come out of our hoo-has.
Before they had science to prove that, men actually contributed to that, they thought that, it was women. Because you can literally say, I birthed this baby. Yeah, there's other men or whatever, but you wouldn't really 100% know that, right, without science telling us that. And so I know even in Spanish culture, they do still add in the mother's last name as a hyphen. I know other cultures do as well. It's very sad to me. I think that as a woman, a lot of our past is defined by our spouse or fathers. And that's not to say in a negative way, right? I have a very loving husband. And if I were to take somebody's last name, his would obviously be it, because I admire him and who he is. And obviously my kids have his last name. So it's beautiful. It's just, I wanted.
Yeah, but also what purpose does it serve? Really, truly,
It's a name. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which then again, names have meanings. Names are very important to describing how you feel and who you are. But I think, a lot of people, and maybe this is toxic masculinity, where if you take the woman's name, or if the woman decides to not take the man's name, that there's like judgment on that.
Mm-hmm.
Like harsh, oh, she's a feminist, and oh, she did this and this and this. And
it's the same thing about there's a lot of controversy around a woman proposing to a man.
Yes.
I know that it was something I considered doing with my husband when we were dating. I wanted to pop the question. I was like, maybe I'll do this. I didn't, but I did remember bringing it up to people that I was thinking about it. And it was just like, no, you're not supposed to do that. He's supposed to do the grand gesture. I'm like, says who? Maybe I want to show my love and show my commitment. Why does it matter who goes first?
Yeah, definitely. And before I was with my husband, I was engaged to somebody, and I almost wanted to, because I would speed the process up faster, which I think says a lot. But my husband is very much that person that was, no, you can definitely ask me first. You can definitely ask me out first. You can do the,
my husband would have loved it. He would have hands down loved it. It was the fear of judgment from others, because I was in a different place then.
Mm-hmm. And my husband actually asked me, he claims like 3, really probably only 2 times to marry him. And I denied him multiple times. And it's because we were like, that's the other thing, that there's this standard on how a person's supposed to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were in a car And he was like, yeah, well, we should get married or something like that. The way he asked it, and I was like, you're funny. And not knowing, because I really didn't know him as well as I do now, I just thought he was joking, which was annoying to me, of like, this is a serious conversation to me. But he took it as like intense rejection.
Oh my goodness.
like who sets the standard on you have to have all this stuff to propose a certain way?
Mm-hmm.
Which is also a huge side note that, we've been married twice to each other. Because we got married at a courthouse wedding. That's what we wanted to do. We didn't have the money, and also it was just our choice at the time. And then whenever I decided to convert to Catholicism, we got not married, but like renewal in a sense, our vows renewed in a Catholic church, and we'll probably go and do something witchy and woo woo later.
I love that, because it's such a signature of your growth though, as people, and just remembering it's a beautiful reminder of we are still growing in who we are, but we are still committed to growing with each other at the same time. It's really powerful. I want to do that with Sean. I want to renew our vows. Once he completes his, he promised to take me camping and still hasn't yet.
I love it. And I feel like the question comes up a lot when people are like, who are you? Tell us about yourself.
How do you even begin to answer that question? It bothers me every time. It's just, I don't know how to explain my existence in an elevator speech. That's what it feels like.
This is one of Alyssa's like rant.
Yes, topics.
It is. You can't really, but I feel like it ties into name, because we put titles on ourselves. If I'm a mother, therefore my last name is this. I'm a wife.
It feels like you're tying your value in that though. And it's not. That's not what makes you valuable. Your existence in itself is valuable and worthy. And when you introduce yourself and tie yourself to different things like that, it's like you're weaving this web of where you're putting your worth. Yes, this is my rant topic.
And I like how you said weaving. You're weaving your web.
I didn't even realize I used it. It's so deeply ingrained at this point.
Well, and I think it's important. Like, I love having this conversation with Alyssa, because this isn't to say that I'm saying, women, go choose your own name or make your husband choose your name, which is even your father's name. Like, that's not what I'm saying. For her, it was a very empowered move to take her husband's last name, and that's beautiful. My brother and his partner, when they get married, she's going to take his last name, and it's a choice that she's making intentionally. And I think that's like a lot of things in my life is, I support people in their decisions. I just love people choose things actively versus just going along with what society says you should do, right? I'm choosing to shave because I want to. Like we talk about loving our body. I'm choosing to have smooth legs because I enjoy the feeling of it, versus I feel like I have to do this because I'm going to be judged if I don't. No. Keep the name you want to keep, or change it. I mean, technically you did change your name too, Lily.
I think it all comes down to really just taking the time to pause and be aware of the decisions that you're making and why you're making them. Are you making them because it's what everybody else does and it seems like a standard? Or are you making that decision because it's what you want to do? And if that meets the standard, that's fine. But really just taking the time to really pause and evaluate, what does this decision mean to me?
And even if it's that beginning, like I said, I just had a desire to do it. And I couldn't explain it at the time. And clearly there's a lot of stuff there as to why, but I trusted my intuition on it. If you're doing, and not just, with names, with anything, if you have a desire to kind of go against a societal norm, but you can't quite put a finger on it, just trust yourself. You don't have to have your reason. The reason typically is for other people so you feel validated, right? It's not for yourself because you want to do it. Why would you have to validate it to yourself unless you feel like you have to prove it's worthy of it. And whatever decision you make in that regard is worthy. You don't have to have somebody tell you, you know what, that's a great decision, you should go for it. I mean, it's nice to hear.
Yeah.
But who cares their opinion?
And also what's the worst thing that's going to happen, right? You make that decision to do that, whatever that thing is. I can't think of a better word. And maybe it doesn't resonate with you, but you had the gut pull to do it. You did it, you experienced it. Maybe it served a purpose in learning. And then, maybe I won't do that again.
Or maybe, if you're talking about names, you change it back.
Yeah.
That's okay. Like, it is fully okay to choose something and then decide, you know what, not that I made a mistake, but I learned what I needed to from it, and I'm going to walk away from this in a different way. I feel like we, especially as women, don't feel like we're allowed to make mistakes, aren't allowed to try something like this. Hey, I want to have a different name because that's just what I want to try. And we just get a lot of slack for it. Also to where we feel like we constantly have to have validation, reasons, things to prove ourselves that it's justifiable. I mean, I even tie this into, I want to take yoga teacher training or, my Ayurveda school, right? And in reality, I don't want to teach those things, but I would justify it that, I can make money off of this because it's, those are typically expensive endeavors. I can make money. I can teach people to validate my learning. No.
You're allowed to learn just because you want to learn.
You are valid to just experience and learn in life and not have to make money off of it, not have to prove it somewhere else. And I think as feminine beings, that's kind of that energy that we've caught ourselves up in, and we get to change that. I think if I were to give a tip for wanting to step out of your comfort zone in changing your name, in changing your, we say job, in changing something about yourself that is typically considered inconvenient. I think
it's almost like a release of what's not serving you anymore. Release that baggage, whatever that's been picking at you, you've noticed, and you think, I really need to let this thing go. Do it. Let it go.
I agree. I think my biggest tip would be to journal about it and find out, like, if you're doubting that choice, right? If you feel it just in yourself and your body's just yelling at you, to journal about it and see why, one, am I feeling this? Why, two, am I not allowing myself to go for it? And three, what's the benefit? Like, why am I doing this in the sense of how can this help me grow or help others? Not that it has to, but it kind of gives you a perspective of, for me, my last name, Webb, it's when publishing yourself, you have to, as I mentioned in my episode earlier, you have to have confidence in yourself. And if you're doubting the most minute decisions,
where's the
that's
trust?
Not confidence.
Yeah.
Not at all. And I think we forget that, right? We allow that voice to make us doubt every tiny decision. You're really wearing that shirt today? Why? Like, even if it's just, today's Sunday, you're supposed to be wearing yellow.
Oh, you wore pajamas all day? Why? Because I fucking wanted to.
Exactly. I mean, it's literally every decision. I'm looking at my Harry Potter set in front of me. It's like, why is that up still? You're going to be moving soon. You should probably take it out. Like, every decision, if you listen to your brain to just doubt everything, then you're not trusting anything. I think our bodies just know.
Yeah. And each time you make that choice to trust, to intentionally trust and let go of that doubt, you are building that trust and that relationship with yourself, right? And that is going to be key on your journey to get anywhere healing wise. If you want to stand in your authenticity, stand in your truth and find your purpose, or even go through self-forgiveness and releasing of shame, before you can do any of that healing, you have to trust yourself and the choices you are making, so that when you heal, you trust the process.
And I mean, Alyssa, I feel like you have a lot of experience with having to trust yourself and, really diving into what your body's saying versus your mind.
I feel like I need to do a whole episode on it.
I was just thinking that, but I mean, at this moment, what would be a tip, if you have that, or, ways that people can start trusting themselves and looking at, what their body's saying versus their mind?
I would say, I know I talk about this all the time, and it's something so simple, but really in any decision that you're making, understanding, taking the time to pause and understand, is it coming from a place for your heart or for your mind? I've talked about this before in prior episodes in a blog in our community. When you eat your food, that's the example I choose, is you pause before you eat. And are you eating this for your heart? Or are you eating it for your body? Sometimes it satisfies both, and just giving gratitude for the purpose that decision made for you. And I think each decision that we make intentionally like that builds that next brick of trust in our foundation. Mm.
I'm just like rewording that question into, am I choosing my name for my heart or for my body? I would like to see it as, and I guess you could align body with society is kind of what I was thinking of, like that. Maybe not, maybe I'm taking that too far, but like I'm trying to fit it in, and I just see it like
it could even be a third, like heart, body, intellect.
Yeah, that's true, because sometimes our heart wants something, but that society or that fear of that tends to keep us from doing that, or maybe actually pushes us into our body because it's better for our body, so we have to do it, right? But neither are better.
Or when you're making a decision and you feel that pain or knotting in your stomach of, oof, what did I just do? So I feel like decisions, even though they may not be about the body directly, you feel it in your body.
Yep.
Is it serving your body or is it not?
And if it's not serving your body, what is that telling you, right? Diving into, and I also feel like when we get those feelings in our body, because I know you and I have talked in the past about when we get overwhelmed with like the magic around us, a good overwhelmed, like just we're feeling the universe pouring into us.
And synchronicities, and we're feeling the same thing, and we're calling each other like, oh my gosh, did you hear this? And yeah.
And our bodies are buzzing, like legitimately buzzing, and we don't know what to do. It's the same feeling like being overwhelmed in the anxiety way. It is the same feeling, maybe without the buzzing of the anxiety way, but you are feeling like, I don't know what to do. And really tuning into your body and being able to allow it to channel and direct that energy in a different way. If we're wanting to see what our body's saying about something, tuning in and taking some deep breaths and grounding is typically, I'd say, one of the best ways to go.
And that doesn't even matter which end of the spectrum you're on, whether you're on the excited overwhelmed or the anxiety overwhelmed. Taking that moment, I think
both of those come when making those decisions, where you get excited about something and overwhelmed, because they're both like they're at the same end of the spectrum. They tie into, like, hate and love is the same in the spectrum. My husband says that you can't hate without love. Like, that's the reason why you hate people, is because you typically love something about them, and it's just difficult for you to deal with that, right? And so excitement and overwhelm tiptoe together along.
They do. I remember, I don't even remember why you called me or I called you, but when we got off of a phone call, something exciting happened. I don't even remember at this point in time, but I got off the phone and I looked at Sean. I was like, I don't know what to do with my hands, because I was just buzzing with excitement. I literally didn't know what to physically do with my body. I
usually walk circles, like I'm just walking around and like da 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 da. Yeah, just realizing now that we both get to choose and decide how to have our own, conversation with our body as we figure out how to manage that.
Because we're growing with you, going through the process with you.
And kind of coming back to a name, I think it's beautiful also listening and seeing and watching other people choose names for babies. because that definitely defines, in some ways, their characteristics, right? I think that that's another huge scandal is when someone decides to really embody their feminine or masculine energy as opposed to what they've been born with, and they choose to change that name. And that's a huge scandal. What is in a name, right? Like, if you start off with Sam, and I guess Sam could kind of be gender neutral, but you want maybe something that's more feminine in your mind, and you take on Stacy. There's just so much judgment towards that.
And there shouldn't be. It's a beautiful process. You are transforming. Even if you just want to change your name just because, like my middle name, I want to change it because it doesn't suit me anymore. That's okay and valid. Your name, you're allowed to change it to reflect who you are, even if you don't legally change it.
Yeah, you don't have to even justify it by saying, well, I identify more with this. No, I want to change it because I fucking want to change it.
Call me this. That is what I will answer to. Thank you. Goodbye.
And I think people tend to get frustrated because, especially parents, right? It's like, but I know I named you that specifically for whatever. And I think it's recognizing the love and the love they put into that name. But I mean, if my boys ever decided to change their name, I would admit, yes, there's a bit of sadness with that, yes, because I did choose it for a certain reason, and it has ties to family and that kind of stuff. But would I berate them? No. That in the end, they decide how they want to show up, and by changing their name allows them to show up more fully as their highest self, then by all means, like, that is just a beautiful process.
It is so beautiful.
It shouldn't be so difficult to change your name.
It shouldn't be so difficult just to freaking exist.
Well, yeah, there's that. I think that kind of just, I don't know, I can't speak for people who identify as men if they feel like it's difficult to exist. I know as a woman, it feels that way. It's like I have everything just second guessing what I do sometimes, or how it's perceived. If I'm a bitch, if I'm a slut, I mean, any of it, right? And that's just being married. Like, if I'm talking to somebody and, oh, look, she's a slut for talking to this guy and she's all flirty. Like, anything is just perceived the
when
wrong
you're
way.
just being freaking nice, excuse me.
But even then, look at that controversy between, well, why aren't you being nice? You should always be nice to people, quote unquote, men. You should always be nice to them. And so, are you being nice? Or are you being flirty? Because if you're being flirty, then you're being a hoe.
But that line is so gray. You just don't even know where it is anymore.
I think the line only exists to those who want it to exist, right?
Well, I also feel like that line is in different places for different people, and we don't speak it out loud. So nobody knows the boundary, and then it creates this chaos of she was flirting with him, or they were flirting together and they're being scandalous. No.
You said it in like your rumor voice of like, I'm gonna secret you. I'm gonna tell you a secret. Yes. I love it because that's what it is. It's like gossiping entirely. I have a fun challenge for this week, because I was kind of thinking of that, like, what's a fun challenge with name and that kind of thing. And I challenge you, our listener, to look at your name, and maybe you could ask, if you feel comfortable, the person who names you, why they named you that,
or and even just look up the meaning of look up the meaning of your name. And
then after you've done that, I challenge you to find out what you want your name to mean. Because it doesn't matter what somebody else says your name to mean. I mean, yes, there could be, etymology with it, and that's beautiful. But I challenge you to see, like, are you taking on what somebody else has said your name means, or are you embodying what you want your name to mean? That is my challenge to you. And I'm going to do it myself as well.
Yeah. So just to clarify, we're comparing the definition of the name and the reason it was given to us compared to what we want our name to be defined as.
Yep. Because for so long, Tara means dirt in a more elegant way. Like it means, my dad named me from Gone with the Wind. And, you know, I attached myself to Gone with the Wind for so long. And it was like, I want to live on a plantation and be this and this and this. And then I grew up and I was like, oh, that has slaves. And that's not like idealistic of how beautiful life actually was. Oh, hold on.
Oh, let's reevaluate.
Right, let's look at what this actually is. But it means like earth, and you know, that's beautiful with Gaia. But then I also started connecting with green Tara, and I find that energy to be more in alignment with
that
with
is
who I
such
am.
sweet
You know,
energy too. If you've never looked up green Tara, I highly recommend just looking her up in her story, because she is such a beautiful, supportive goddess.
And I'll say her mantra, the Tara Tu Tara Ture Soha. We're gonna have that in the show notes, and a link to a Spotify song that you can.
I was gonna say the same thing. There's a beautiful song. You have to listen to it. I sing it to my kids.
I do too, and it's very relaxing. But yeah, definitely go check out Green Tara. But that's what I've chosen my name to represent. I'm gonna, you know, look at my middle name as well, but I think my middle name is actually Alyssa, which is
amazing.
But yeah, that is our challenge for you this week, and we would love to hear what you have to say about that. You know, let us know on our Instagram, or even shoot us an email. We always want to hear from you.
And if you're in our community, stop in and let's talk about it in our Discord. This concludes another episode of our Weaving Magick podcast.
We release one episode a week, so be sure to subscribe to catch the latest episode as soon as it releases. You can find us on Instagram at Weaving Magick Podcast. That's Weaving Magick, Magick Podcast.
We would also love it if you could leave us a review. If you do, make sure to email us your review so we can send you a thank you gift. Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to find a way to weave magic into your daily life.